My name is Jess Barrios, and I'm a junior at Barnard College. I'm majoring in Spanish and Latin American cultures with a minor in economics, and I am the co-lead for Elevate. And lastly, I'm a first-generation Guatemalan American who has been surrounded by Latinx music and the culture since the day I was born. And fun fact, I was actually born while Primer Impacto was airing, which is an infamous Latinx news program. So I thought I would share that. And now to introduce Jesus, we're so pleasured to welcome our speaker, Jesús Triviño Alarcón, who is the Senior Director for Global Latin Culture and Content at Tidal. He is Brooklyn-born and raised Ecuadorian-American. Jesús Triviño is a Webby-nominated content creator who has covered music, TV, film, and more for over 17 years as a reporter, editor, producer, and curator. His work has been featured in People.com, Latina, Vibe, Apple Music, New York Daily News, Slam, XXL, The Source, Essence.com, and Bet.com. He has interviewed countless luminaries, including Bruno Mars, Lin-Manuel Miranda, J Balvin, Daddy Yankee, Demi Lovato, and Juanes. So thank you so much, Jesus, for joining us. We're so excited to have you.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for having me.
Okay, so today we're gonna have the Q&A, and I'll be asking questions, and then at the end, where there's like 20 minutes left, we're gonna open it for Q&A from the audience, and anyone is welcome to submit any questions that you have right now or while our conversation is going on, and then we'll get back to it at the end. All right, so let's start. I would love if you could walk us through your journey, so to speak. When were some pivotal moments in your life where you had to make challenging decisions, and how did it get to where you are today?
Sure. I mean, do you want to start from the very beginning or like career?
Honestly, yeah, whatever you feel comfortable with sharing with us.
I always say that I got, my start before I even got in the music industry or the journalism industry. So with my parents, really, as a kid of immigrants. My first job was at 11 with my dad at a butcher store. My dad was a kosher butcher. Mind you, he's Ecuadorian, but he was he was a butcher at a kosher butcher shop in Borough Park, Brooklyn. And every Sunday he would take me to work, and I hated it. But he would literally tell me, he's like, I want you to do this now, so you don't have to do this when you're my age. And I've taken that saying, that grit, that hard work throughout my career. Like, when I'm interviewing a Balvin or Bad Bunny, whoever, like not that I think about that, but that's always in the back of my head. That's always, when people complain or people like, oh, this is rough. I'm like, yeah, we're still just curating and interviewing these Latin stars while, our parents broke their back to get us to this point. So, that was the initial step for me. But then as far as when to college, I went to Brooklyn College, CUNY, and I was a double major with journalism and Latino studies there. And I really started, really in college with the newspaper there. And then I started doing internships while I was there. I did 4 internships before I graduated. They were at sohh.com, which is a hip hop site, Rolling Stone, People.com, and Vibe magazine. So those are the 4 that I did before I graduated. By the time I already was still in school, I was already interviewing rappers, like, people like Ghostface Killah, Kanye West, Nas. And I was interviewing them for the website for Vibe, and then I always thought I was always covering hip hop and reggaeton at the same time. I was like one of the few people. I want to say there was like maybe a handful of other journalists that I know that were doing the same thing, because at that time, and I would say that mid 2000s, even earlier than that, people weren't talking about reggaeton the way they are now. And I just saw it as an extension of hip hop, is what it was. And it's something that spoke to me as a kid that grew up with hip hop, with like Tribe Called Quest, De La Soul, Nas, Jay-Z, all these people. I saw Daddy Yankee as a next step. And we were looking for that. As Latinos, I was always looking for that. I was always using the lyrics in some songs and making sure to like kind of putting the whole Latino phrase in there, like, looking for acceptance within the culture that we helped create, because obviously it was created by Black and Latinx. But yeah, so I got, from those internships, they led into a magazine job at Scratch Magazine, which was no longer around, but it was a producer DJ magazine housed by Harris Publications. and they created Double XL, King Magazine, Brides Magazine, Slam Magazine, a lot of these niche publications that were super strong in the 2000s. And from there, like I thought, yeah, the one thing I always say, like people always ask me, what have you learned throughout your career? Is like I would say always learn to adapt, because I thought I was going to be a magazine writer my whole life, but now I'm in streaming. And so during that time, I'm doing Scratch Magazine. We also, while I was there, we also did a Fuego magazine, which was a Latin men's magazine. It was only around for 3 issues. It was really early. It was in 2004, 2005. I was, straight out of college, and we had the first person on the cover was Michelle Rodriguez. And within the magazine, it was a national magazine. It was the first of its kind, first English language magazine for Latino men. We had features on Daddy Yankee in it, Tego Calderon, Juanes. Like I said, Michelle Rodriguez was on the cover. And it was an edgy magazine. And the advertisers just didn't understand it. They didn't understand that, wait, this isn't a hip hop magazine? Oh, it's for Latinos? Well, do they speak English or do they speak Spanish? They speak both? Well, we don't understand that. So yeah. Unfortunately, it only lasted for about 3 issues. And I went back to Scratch full time because it was a house under the same publishing house. And from there, I kind of fell out of love with hip hop. I just didn't. It was like 07, 08, and the music at the time wasn't speaking to me anymore. I just couldn't stay at a job where my job was to create content with rappers that I did not care for. So I just didn't. I wasn't as motivated to create something for whoever was coming out at the time. And then that's when I decided to make the full-time switch to Latinx content. And so I went to the CTV, which was now Fuse TV. So they were a cable network, still are a cable network. And I went there to run their editorial online. And right after that, I went to BET for a little bit, BET.com. And right before Tidal, I was at Latina Magazine. So Latina Magazine, everyone knows, was like the essence of for Latina women, and my role there was to be the entertainment director. So I booked the covers, and I learned so much, not only about booking celebrities and dealing with celebrity publicists and dealing with managers. Also, I ended up knowing what a blender was, and a lot of makeup references that I wouldn't normally know, that my wife is happy that I do know now.
That's so fun.
But yeah, so it was, and then my time that I was there for 5 years, and it was a pleasure. Again, I not only made a lot of the contacts that I have to this day, but I was able to land a lot of big covers while I was there, like Bruno Mars and Romeo Santos. Demi, Shakira, J-Lo, which a lot of these take time, obviously, because they're big stars. But they were just, when I did get them on the cover, it felt so good because you put in all that work and you put all those emails and all those phone calls, and when it finally happens, like it's amazing. So yeah, and that led me to Tidal. So if you would see that a lot of us in streaming, I would say especially on the Latinx side, we come from journalism. I would say half of us come from journalism, the other half come from radio. A lot of my colleagues at other DSPs, we came up together. We were writing, we were in the trenches reporting on Latinx music and hip hop. And that's why it makes sense for us to be in these roles now, because we are of the culture. We are the culture, and it's always good to have people that, from that, from the culture, dictate what goes on and what in these streaming services or any outlet. As we learn now, we're seeing that now, that it's very important to have people of color in positions of power and put people, in positions that make actual decisions that affect how everything rolls out. So.
Thank you so much for your answer. I definitely agree with you. As you mentioned at the beginning, how coming from immigrant parents, you kind of instill values that, make you want to work harder and be someone successful in life. And I feel like me as well, like I'm a first generation low income student, and being from parents who immigrated from Guatemala, I definitely agree with you. And that's kind of what motivates me to this day, always just trying to provide for them and provide for my family. Anyways, thank you for your answer. You touched upon this a little bit when you were answering the previous question, but I'd like to know more how your culture and heritage, especially being Ecuadorian, and how it's impacted your relationship in with music and media.
Yeah, it's been super helpful, especially in I would say my last two positions, this one and the one in Latina. And also I've considered myself lucky, not only being Ecuadorian, South American, but growing up in New York, because I grew up in Brooklyn surrounded by Puerto Ricans and Dominicans. So I had those cultures around me too. You know, a lot of my friends were that and still are to this day. So taking that and dealing with artists today, they you know, they see me as coming off, you know, I'm authentic. I know, you know, this is who I am. Like, you know, I can talk to them in Spanish. You know, really, my Spanish has definitely gotten a lot better at Tidal, because I have calls. I have calls with people in Spain and Colombia, Mexico, all around the world, and also a big thing, also just in general with interviewing artists. When you do interview artists, I prefer to interview them in their native language, because that always elicits the best answers and best responses, as opposed to like them. Why should they struggle to speak in English when, you know, that's not their first language and you're the one interviewing them, you know? So yeah, you know, it influences every step, every decision I make. I also always keep in mind not only my Ecuadorian, my South American heritage, but I always keep in mind what the larger landscape of Latinos, like, you know, Mexicans, you know, Dominicans, Puerto Ricans, Cubans, Colombians, like we're such a wide, just huge pool of different cultures and raíces. Like we have to keep in mind, we have to be sensitive to all of them. So.
Right. Thank you for answering. And I guess going off of like location and just genre, how do you think Latinx music is like, for example, how do you think it's the location and the language of a specific area impacts the music from there? I know some people on this call don't know as much, so I think it'd be really interesting if you could explain a little bit about norteñas, or for example, like bachata in the Dominican Republic and the Caribbean.
Yeah. So as you brought up bachata is sort of, I kind of link it to vallenato in Colombia. It's a lot of these genres are, you know, they started as genres of the poor, and eventually when it, you know, there was success to it, they became popular genres within those countries. Something like a bachata, obviously you think of Romeo, you think of Prince Royce, but before them there was Anthony Santos. And for cumbia, I would say you have Carlos Vives, who's a big proponent of that, and vallenato, but before him you had La Sonora Dinamita. And a lot of these are, yes, they're very singular to their country, but it gets to a point they have a bigger artist like a Romeo that brings it to the masses. And who would have thought, you know, Romeo, he sold out Yankee Stadium twice. And to bachata again, you know, I call like cumbia I put on Lisandro Mesa or La Sonora de Damita with my wife and I in the car, and we call it, you know, how Puerto Ricans say Hibaro music. It's hick music, but it's like that music that is so ingrained in us. You know, has those indigenous flutes sometimes, and we feel so vibrant from it. It's just yeah. I mean, I don't know if I answered your question specifically, but I think it's just it's that inherent culture of each of our countries has that it represents us all. So.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I think, for example, in Guatemala, there really isn't a genre to say specifically, like in the Dominican Republic where there's bachata, but the traditional music is marimba, which is like a xylophone, and that's really important in our culture and like the dances that they have. So I think it varies between countries, and like everyone has their own type of culture and music that carries along. But yeah, so a little bit more about Tidal. I'd like to ask you a question. Like in your position as Senior Director for Global Latin and Culture and Content, I would love to hear what your job entails, and maybe you could explain or talk about one of the most unforgettable moments or experiences you've had and how it has influenced your work.
Sure. So at Tidal, I pretty much anything that is Latin on the platform crosses my desk. So I, you know, have a hand in it, whether it's curating playlists, our flagship playlist, or the Essentials playlist for artists like Mark Anthony Essentials, to, you know, having constant calls with our distributors and our label partners, and also our artist managers and the publicists, and having, now, virtual, before we would have artist visits to our office, but, we can't do that now. So we have Zoom artist listening sessions, and they present the album, their new music to us, and saying like, this is what we're working on. Would love your support, see how we can collaborate. Also pre-COVID, we've had a ton of live streams. For example, last year we partnered with Rock the Vote. And so it was a Tidal X Rock the Vote. We did a big concert, a big charity concert in last October in Barclays. And I helped book Farruko, Becky G, and Sancio for the concert. It was a mixed genre concert. Obviously, Alicia Keys was on it too, various big artists. And then really just not only beyond the actual playlisting and the managing of, the relationships, because that's a big part of the job, is just managing relationships and making sure that, Tidal's represented across the board. I would say it's also, dealing with the emerging genres that are coming out, and also the emerging artists, which is a big part of our job. Listen, we would support Balvin, Bunny, all the major stars, the Yankees, the Karol G's, but the reality is the rising artists really need our support more than they do. And I get excited when I listen to an artist who's really good and they have, 2,000 followers on Instagram, because I feel kind of like, oh, no one knows about him or her, and I can help them out somehow by putting them on a playlist or giving them support in an article. So I think that's really part of the job, and above all, culture. So yes, we are a streaming platform, but culture is the biggest motivator for us, whether it's doing content for Latinx Heritage Month, Black History Month. We also just launched a social justice tab within the app, where you can go on there and there's, speeches by Dr. Martin Luther King, speeches by President Barack Obama, influential poets like the Ghost Scott Heron, Maya Angelou, just a lot of that content that we with our VP, Tony Gervino, who's an amazing leader, decided to launch this tab, because this social justice is not something that is going to happen overnight. So that's something that we keep on populating, and we'll continue to populate and promote. So it's a lot.
Yeah, from what it seems, you have a lot on your plate, but honestly, I think that's amazing. And you're influencing so many things within Tidal that helps lots of people. For example, Latinx listeners, Latinx artists, and just like general people, which is honestly really great. And I guess going off of your answer with like helping smaller artists, do you have any recommendations for us for any upcoming artists we should check out?
Yes, for sure. It was funny because I was working on a list before this.
Yeah.
So it's like they're rising, but they're also bubbling within their scenes. So right. One of them is Omi de Oro, who's a great trap guy from Puerto Rico. He just released an EP called El Rey del Punchline, because he's really good with the metaphors. And then there's an R&B singer from the Canary Islands in Spain, Eva Ruiz. She's just super dope, super laid back, very chill. And Maluchi, who is this really gritty trap artist from Peru. She just released her debut album a couple weeks ago. I've been listening to it nonstop. There's so many. I mean, I can go on, like Corina Smith from Venezuela, who's signed to Rimas. She's reggaeton trap. Cablito, who's this Ecuadorian like indie alternative vibe. She's Ecuadorian-American. La Dame Blanche from Cuba. She signed to National Records, and again, she's like a rapper, but she's also a R&B singer. Just her lyrics are so very powerful and moving. I can go on. So there's quite a few that I have my eye on, and making sure that we support.
That's amazing. I just typed all those down. So I'll be sharing with everyone hopefully soon. And when that playlist drops, please email me. I need to share with everyone.
Got it.
But anyways, yeah, thank you so much for that. Definitely going to be looking into all of them. Another question I have is talking
Oh, I'm
about,
sorry, and one I forgot, Chucky73, who's doing this Latin drill type of vibe, and he's from Uptown. So yeah, Chucky73,
all
it's
right,
one word, one word.
I found it. Yeah, I found him. All right, dope. I'm gonna definitely send everyone this list. But anyways, on to my question. Do you see any challenges Latinx content creators and founders face in the music and media industries? For example, I know being a smaller creator and singer is really hard to kind of, get on the scene. But aside from that, do you see any other challenges for creators?
Give me an example, so you're saying like singers, musicians?
Yeah, well, yeah, singers, musicians, creators, and do you see any like challenges with like the Latinx like for their content?
I mean, I think right now is a great time to be, black and brown as a creator in any space. Like this is a time and we should take advantage of it, because there hasn't been any other time like this. People want to hear our voices, and they need to hear our voices more than anything. So I mean, immediate challenges, I would say, I don't know. I would say just take the opportunity right now and go for it, and find the right people to connect with at whether it is at a DSP, whether it is at a publication. Um, you know, there are real people there. There aren't just machines. They're real people, and they're willing to help. Especially within the Latinx community, I would say that our community in the Latin music industry is very connected. We're small, but it's big, but it's small. But we're also willing to help out each other. Like, because at the end of the day, we work for different outlets, but we want to push our music, because the thing is, like, Latin music isn't music, right? It is music, but it isn't. It's culture more than anything. It's not a genre. It's culture. So we want to see this prosper. We want to see it succeed.
I definitely agree with that. I think Latinx music is culture. I know when I was growing up, everything I would hear is like still instilled to like my values and like what I want to hear in the car and all these things. But going off of that, I think definitely there has been a shift in the type of Latin music that comes out and what's considered popular today. Could you talk a little bit more about how the Latinx music scene has shifted over time? Or for example, like, could you describe the evolution of the Latinx music and sound?
Yeah, I mean, listen, I was, like I said in the beginning, covering reggaeton, not a lot of outlets wanted to cover reggaeton, whether it's English language or Spanish language. And again, this was in the 2000s. And it was hard to, I would pitch stories about reggaeton and they would be like, yeah, we're good. We don't want that. It's too, whether it was too vulgar, or we don't, it's not hip hop. So the evolution is that reggaeton is pop music now. J Balvin just dropped a McDonald's meal. Bad Bunny just signed a deal with it escapes me, the shoes, the Crocs. He just signed a deal with Crocs and they sold out instantly. Daddy Yankee is one of the icons and he's still around. And I think that's been the biggest shift. Reggaeton is now pop music, as opposed to what in the very beginning it was, shunned upon. It was sometimes even, governments in Latin America were, making it illegal to listen to. And that's really through the power of hip hop. Like, because it all goes back to hip hop. If it wasn't for hip hop, Latin music wouldn't be prospering the way it is now. It's just that's the reality. Because if you take away the language from any of these guys, they're rappers. Their aesthetic is hip hop, and that's that. I'll say that till I die. It's hip hop.
Yeah, definitely agree with you. I think I did see the Bad Bunny thing. The Crocs sold out
Yes,
immediately, which is
immediately.
crazy. And again, the J Balvin, McDonald's ad is
Yep.
definitely gonna, reach a great audience of Latinx consumers in the US. Well, thank you for answering the question. I guess some fun questions that I wanted to ask is, who's your current favorite artist, or what are some artists on your current playlist that you'd like to share with us?
Okay, so I'm looking through my playlist right now. So this is a guy that I've been really supporting since day one. This guy Fade, Feid. He's from Colombia, Medellin. He started as a songwriter for a lot of acts. He has a cool R&B vibe. But he does, just a mix of genres. Of course, Mike Towers, who's a beast. He is like just an amazing rapper. I'm still listening to Dua Lipa and The Baby. I'm not. It's not just Latinx music. Who else? Jay Cortez, Raul Alejandro, who's another guy that I've been a Day One supporter, and Raul was very in the Chris Brown aesthetic. Double threat with the choreography and singing. Setch, of course. Setch is just a phenomenal talent.
Yes,
also gives us, a lot of us, we not only is he a phenomenal talent, but a lot of us that are Day One reggaeton fans, gives us, so much joy because he's coming from Panama. And for those that don't know, reggaeton, has its roots in Panama before being really born in Puerto Rico. And Bad Bunny, Chuck B. Town, who is a great trio from Colombia. Again, also Afro Latinos, and just they've been around for a little bit, but they're really coming to prominence as of late. I can go on, but those are a lot of the ones that I keep on repeat.
No, of course. Thank you so much. Definitely gonna add all of these to my list. I already have a few, but definitely gonna get to some listening this weekend. Another question is, have you met any artists, or have you worked with someone that has kind of left you starstruck in a sense, where you're like, oh my gosh, as a kid, I dreamed of working with this person?
I mean, it's interesting, right? And I'm not gonna say I'm never starstruck, but I do have conversations with a couple of my close friends that have similar jobs, and we do say the day that I don't think this is cool, that someone knows who I am, that's the day I need to get out. So there's been a lot of times, someone like Evie Queen, who I interviewed in the 2000s, and now seeing her in this position, and she still remembers me. I don't expect people to remember me because I'm a journalist. I'm still, even though I'm in streaming, I'm a curator, I still think myself as a journalist, and I abide by the rules of Almost Famous. I don't know if you guys are familiar with that movie, where in Almost Famous, there's a scene with Philip Seymour Hoffman and the lead character, and he's saying, "Oh, you became friends with them," and with the artists, and they're like, "No, you're not friends with them. You're not cool. You're not as cool as these artists. You're the reporter. you're never going to be as cool as them." So I always abide by that thing, but my role has definitely been different now because I am in streaming. I'm not a reporter per se. But yes, listening, being in a session with Don Omar, who is, one of the legends of reggaeton, and him playing me new music and looking at me for my reaction, and I'm like, this is good, but I don't know what this. I'm like, this is Don Omar. So when I was, I've been dancing since I was in high school, college, and I'm like, okay, or. Yankee, I go back to Yankee. So I have, I've interviewed Daddy Yankee a lot, and in the very beginning of my career and his career when he started, blowing up over here in the US, and, him remembering me and, asking me how I'm doing. And the same thing with J Balvin. Again, I've been one of the biggest proponents of him, pioneers, I was going to say, proponents of Balvin in the beginning, from when he made the transition from Colombia to the US. And him, having those relationships where every time we see each other, I'm like, he's asking me how is my wife and this and that. So it's not about starstruck, but just feeling like, I guess it is starstruck. When I'm inside, I'm like, wow, these people actually know who I am. And it's still fun to me. It's still someone like a Juanes also. Juanes is just an amazing person, such a nice person. You want these people to be nice and just genuine people, and Juanes is that. Juanes is just, my wife can attest. My wife is Colombian and she loves Juanes, and she is definitely the number one fan. And I'm a huge fan. I can go on, Bruno Mars. That interview was one of my best interviews, and we spent an hour interview and then an hour just talking about whatever. Because I weird story, but I know his girlfriend from a past job. She worked on one of the reality shows I was the editor on. So anyway, it's just you become, I would say you become colleagues with these people. You don't become friends with them, but you become colleagues. And, so I become friends with the publicists. I become friends with the managers because it's different. But yeah, so I guess I am starstruck in some ways. But yeah, that Don Omar moment was very weird to me.
Yeah, I'm starstruck just hearing that, honestly. Don Omar asking you your opinions on a song, are you kidding me? That's amazing. I know you mentioned Ivy Queen. Ivy Queen is honestly la reina de reggaeton. Like,
Yes, of course.
she is amazing. And I just read your article and I found it so fascinating how she kind of empowered women in the reggaeton scene. And I was wondering if you could talk a little bit more about that and, inform everyone else kind of what you wrote about.
Yeah. Listen, Evie, Evie, Ivy Queen, one of her albums, Flashback, just turned 15 years this past Sunday. And I wrote a piece for Tidal honoring it. And you look at people like Cardi B, Anita, even Becky G, like they'll say one of the influences was Ivy Queen, like because Ivy Queen, she was not only was she the main reggaetonera in the early stages of reggaeton, she was also one of the pillars of the whole genre in itself. It was Daddy Yankee, Tego Calderon, Don Omar, and Ivy Queen. And she was always just very, not afraid to speak her mouth, like we say, sin pelos en la lengua. Like she would always like lay down the lyrics. Always was pro women. She is someone like a Paquita del Barrio from regional Mexican. She's very matter of factly. She is not gonna back down from anyone. I remember seeing her when I just got the Tidal after years of not seeing her, and we were catching up, and I think she asked me like how long I've been married, and I was like, oh, this amount. She's like, and then as she's leaving, she just said, you better treat your wife right. You don't want her to dedicate one of my songs to you. I'm like, I will. But she is, Ivy Queen is look her up. She is a huge persona, an artist within our culture, and people she's still putting out great music to this day. So.
Yeah, it's amazing. I honestly so inspired by Ivy Queen. I remember listening to her when I was only like 7 or 6 years old. And I was like, yes, go off, Queen, like literally so good. But I think I find it really interesting how women in the, reggaeton scene aren't, well, not to say they aren't as popular, but Latinx people perceive them a different way and they have to come a certain way. And I think Ivy Queen kind of changed that. She was like, I don't give a fuck. Like, I'm going to say what I want. I'm going to do what I want. And I think, honestly, that was a amazing foundation for other women in reggaeton and also just like in other genres.
Correct. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for answering that question. I know we went a little bit off track, but it was really awesome to hear that. I guess one of the last questions before we ask the audience if they have any other questions, it's more of like a life question. What would you implore us college students to do as we continue our education, look into our careers, and try to impact our surrounding communities?
I mean, now the power's in you guys, right? You guys are leading the change and a lot of stuff that's happening this year. And I would say in your career, like I said before, learn how to adapt because things change at the drop of a hat. We could see this year with COVID, like every business has had to adjust, whether it's academic or or not, and just using your voice. Never be afraid to ask the question, or also another thing is like collaborate with your peers, because they're the ones that are going to be around 10 years from now. They're the ones that not only going to be in positions of power, but you guys can work together to help the next generation. Like that's the biggest thing for me, is helping the next generation. When like I said, when I started out, there was only a handful, maybe a little bit more of people like myself that were American-born Latinos writing about reggaeton and hip-hop, and now there's so much more of us, and it makes me so happy. And when they ask me, they DM me or they send me an email for advice, I'm like, yep, let me know because I've been through it already. So let me know what you need to know, what you want to know, and I can answer it for you. So I think that's also like not only doing change, but making change for the generation that's right behind you.
Thank you so much for answering. I definitely agree with all of that. You know, I honestly think that like sometimes I meet this person at a certain gathering or like at a party and I'm like, I stay in touch with them and they end up being like one of my really amazing friends. And my friends now are like doing crazy stuff and we're still in college. So I
Yeah,
can't wait to see what they end up doing in the
of
future.
course, yeah.
Yeah. Anyways, I'm gonna open this up for Q&A. We have around 20 minutes left. If you have any questions, please feel to type in the chat or you can direct it directly to Jesus. And you can turn off your camera if you feel like you want to. Yeah.
Hello, Jesus.
Yeah.
Hi.
Thank you so much for being here with us today. Really appreciate it. I have a question regarding maybe streaming platform versus label records. Like less than 10 years ago, the music industry was very centered around label records. And now that there's those streaming platforms, is kind of restructuring the entire music industry. Do you think the fact that we shifted away from label records is giving more opportunities for the Latinx community and culture to be exposed? And do you think that kind of exposing different cultures other than the one that are very popular now is something that streaming platforms can offer that label records could not do before?
Yeah, no, I think streaming is great for the artists because, you know, the artist has the content in their hands and they can, you know, upload it themselves to all the DSPs, as opposed to a label where like you might get signed. And then listen, I'm saying labels are good. There are some really great executives that are doing great work, but the thing with streaming is, again, you can put it up on all these platforms, connect with the right people, and don't have to sometimes wait on like have your project on a shelf and say there's another bigger priority than you are, then you get pushed back. You get getting pushed back. With the DSPs, like you just put it up there, and I would say for the most part, a lot of the curators, if it's really good, you'll get placed, and then it starts getting traction. Like it can pick up steam, and who knows what's next. So yeah, I think it's really beneficial for the artists, which is above all, like especially with Tidal, you know, we're artists owned, so we always put the artist first. So I think it's very important for the artists, and it's a great time right now.
Thank you so much, Maya, for your question and Jesus for answering. Any other questions?
Yes, hi. I have a question. So
Yes.
I'm so glad I was able to attend and to tune in time because I'm in the countryside and like my connection is just like was cut out. So I was able to fix it just in time. So thank you so much, Justin, for shedding some light on obviously this important month for Latinos. I don't know if it's a coincidence or destiny, but I'm taking the Salsa Soca Regia class. And it's so amazing. I've learned so much about like the Mega Archipelago, and it's just so rich like in its history and culture. And so for this week we have like a concert report, and we're supposed to attend a virtual concert. So I wanted to ask you for recommendation and see like your taste in music, if you have like any kind of like Latin musician concert online, ideally live, or even if it's like on YouTube or any kind of other platform.
Yeah, there's nothing that pops in my head right now that's for virtual for specifically for Latin, but they're always around, especially the artists have taken to their own IG stories and do their own personal performances there. Salsa, are you all specifically for salsa or just in general? Any concerts?
It's a bunch of like dance styles. So we have like salsa, soca, regia. Even like we talked a little bit about bachata, like the salsa bachata, which
Yeah.
was really
Yeah.
relevant. So I don't know, like if you have any kind of like name that pops up to your head.
I would say right now and again, I'm just recommending artists, not for actual concerts, but I know there's an artist, Flaco Navaja, who's actually a poet as well, and he just put out a very traditional salsa song. His name is Flaco Navaja, and he's also, again, like an actor, a playwright, very independent. He's really has some great work, and there's more coming out. He actually just put out a song this past Monday dedicated to his mother. You should check it out.
Can you please spell out like his last
Yeah,
name?
let me put it in the chat.
I put it in. No worries.
Oh, you put it in? Okay.
I got it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha. All right.
Thank you so much, Nasif, for your question.
I think there's some questions here.
Yeah, I could read them out so everyone else can listen. Okay. So Ethan Sedano is asking, what do you think the future of Latinx music will sound like? With the recent rising of cumbia, club, and electronic plus folk, examples of this can be seen in Peruvian DJ group Dengue, yeah, and Arcas, respectively. Can it be said it is going towards a synthetic sound integrated with cultural rhythms?
So it's funny you asked this, Ethan, because I've been talking about this. So definitely the two of the genres that I've been keeping my eye on and I think are definitely going to pop soon is Huaracha. So Huaracha is from Colombia, and it's this electronic music meets tribal, meets like indigenous sounds. And also cumbia. Cumbia is making a comeback. So cumbia, again, comes from Colombia, also went to Mexico. So there is a Mexican version of cumbia. There's this newish artist, not really newish, but called Camilo, that put out a cumbia song recently called Dia de Rico. But cumbia, again, like I said in the beginning, it's a very, it has, it's a genre of the disenfranchised in Colombia, and it plays heavy with that accordion. But I see every week there's new cumbia music. And it's new in a way as far as like very diverse and with new sounds, but there's also new songs that are very traditional in what cumbia sounds like. So I would say cumbia and huaracha. So huaracha is just fun. Like once the clubs open up, you kids need to go dance to some huaracha. Not me, but you guys, huaracha is it. There's this new artist from Colombia called Corneto, DJ Corneto, that's coming out. With some awesome remixes and also some original music. So huaracha.
Do you have any like specific artists in the huaracha?
Corneto, like this guy Corneto. Also this smaller group from Medellin called Huaracha Station. They have like one or two songs. And again, it's DJs taking popular songs and putting their own remix to it. Huaracha remix, but then also some of them have original music, and it's going to take more than one artist. Like any genre, a genre needs at least 3 artists to make it pop. So we'll see.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Ethan, for your question, and Jesus for your response. Delaney Wellington is asking, what's your preparation process for an interview? How do you choose what to ask an artist and to create an interesting article?
A lot of research. And it's easier now as opposed to, like in the 2000s, like you have the internet, we have social media. I do a deep dive on their social media and see what their interactions are, what they posted. I also read past interviews and see if there's anything more they can elaborate on. Also listen, obviously if it's a musician, you have to listen to their music. Like it'd be such a waste of time if you interview someone and you don't listen to their music. Listen to, whether it's a new album or their early stuff, and don't ask like the boring questions. Don't ask the questions. When I ask a question, I want the artist to tell me, wow, I've never heard that before, or wow, good question, or oh, that's interesting, and I've never thought about it like that. Like, come at them with things that they haven't heard before, because for the most part, a lot of artists, when they're on press mode, they're doing millions of interviews. So for you to stand out, you have to do your research and just read, listen, and you'll come out with a great article, a great interview.
Thank you so much. I actually have a question. I know most Latinos know that Facebook Live is a big thing, and I know my uncle's actually a DJ, and he like posts like his Facebook Live, and like he has like 1,000 people on there listening to his mixes and stuff. So I don't know, what are your thoughts on other streaming platforms other than Spotify and Tidal and like Apple Music, like for example Facebook Live or Instagram Live? How do you see that affecting the music industry in some way, or affecting how artists are exposed to the general audience?
I mean, I think it's a good thing, but I know some of the DJs were getting in trouble for copyright issues for playing their music. And I know legally we can, you can play like 30 seconds, I think, of a song and be safe. So I don't know if that's the case, if that's gonna hinder an IG Live. I don't know if it's a good way to get exposure. But people are gonna do what they're gonna do, like especially in quarantine, especially when we can't go anywhere. So I think it's an okay option. I mean, I wouldn't go. I mean, yeah. I mean, D Nice is great, but
yeah. Thank you so much for answering. Are there any other questions? Make sure to type them in the chat. If you feel comfortable, you could speak it out. You don't have to show your camera unless you prefer.
Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. So I just had a question. After reading one of your articles, where you were basically talking about how when Justin Bieber and what's the one song? The Justin Bieber and
Luis Fonsi, Despacito.
Despacito, when that was popular a few years back, you were being critical of Justin Bieber about how he was basically siphoning away some of the attention from some of the Latinx artists and performers. So I just wanted to ask, what do you think it takes for Latinx performers to create popular hits that can go across internationally without using, for example, artists from that country that sort of take away from them or take away from their sound?
Yeah, I mean, I guess 2 words for me is Bad Bunny. Like, that guy does not need anyone. He is a unique talent, and there's more people. I mean, he's very unique and very amazing. He doesn't need anyone to make a hit. But I think it's gonna take more people like him, and we have them. We have them coming up, and I've always said in general, and sometimes I think the Latinx artist gets too excited to do a remix with the English language artist, that they don't care what the feature sounds like. They're like, oh, I just get I got a feature from MC Get Busy, so it's gonna sound dope. But guess what? It doesn't, and it makes the remix worse. So I think sometimes maybe the Latinx artists, maybe the teams have to just be more selective in who they work with, who they have someone jump on a remix. Also, they have to be authentic themselves. They just we don't want them to want it to just be a money grab, and because Latin is hot, oh, I got to do that Latin remix, so got to get those numbers, get those streams up, whatever. So I think artists have to be more selective in general but there is more people, and Bad Bunny's leading the way, man. He is it.
Thank you so much, Kyle, for your question. Justin has a question in the chat. He says, this has been an absolutely amazing session. Thank you for your time and amazing stories/information. I would love to understand how you believe Tidal's content strategy and artist relationship management differs from the other streaming services such as Spotify, Apple Music, SoundCloud, and would also like to know what you think the future of Tidal/streaming looks like.
So the first part, I would say our relationships with artists are amazing, top tier. Like I said, we're artist owned, so we always put the artist first. We're never gonna do content or do anything that makes the artist feel uncomfortable. And not that the other platforms do. I can just speak for where I work, and like I said, they, our relationships are top tier. Whether it's getting playlists done or getting concerts or getting initiatives going for Black History Month, the Latinx History Month. So I would say on that part. And then also, what do you think of the future? So I would say the future of Tidal and streaming is both bright. Everyone's streaming. Whether on different platforms, whether it's on Tidal or another one. We just announced our deal with Oculus, Facebook. We just actually Tidal had our first Oculus concert last night, virtual reality with Charlie XCX, and there's more to come on that. We also just announced a deal with Tesla. We're going to be integrated in their cars. and Maserati as well. So I mean, very high end stuff, but it's very, and that just shows that, you know, Tidal and streaming in general is just going to be more integrated into your daily life. So yeah, it's very bright.
That's so amazing. It's so exciting to hear about Tesla and Maserati. That's really cool. Justin says thanks. I do have another question. Jumping off of what Kyle said, he mentioned what is the artist that can like kind of cross over into different countries and we still become a hit. Kind of going off of that, what Latinx artists do you think kind of inspired US artists, or like, for example, like second generation Latinos in the United States? I know, for example, the first person I think of is Selena Quintanilla. She is, you know, an amazing pop singer. And honestly, if she would have like, you know, stayed around, I think she would have been still amazing. But yeah, do you have any other thoughts?
I mean, no, Selena, yes, she's a great example. I mean, I named my daughter after Selena. So, yes, she is an icon, revered. I would say a lot of our fallen legends, she's the one that can stay up there with the Tupacs of the world and whatnot. Obviously, Celia Cruz. Celia Cruz is someone else that has impacted music just in general, whether it's Latin or not. So Celia Cruz, Selena, I think. I mean, he's not. Again, I mentioned Yankee, but Daddy Yankee's had such a long career. He still looks great, but Daddy Yankee has influenced so much of the artists that are popular now, that we, you know, sometimes we forget that he's been around so long. He's been around since really the late '90s, I want to say. As far as like when reggaeton was called underground. So yeah, so I would say Yankee.
Thank you. Would you say that in the future, do you think Bad Bunny would have would be on that list and have like a lot of influence on like US artists?
Yes, easily. I would say Bunny and Balvin, those two guys have crossed so many barriers, and you know, people listen to them and they don't speak the language. It doesn't matter. And yeah, so I think Bunny and Balvin for sure. Yeah.
Amazing. Thank you so much. I guess one more fun question, unless everyone has written their questions. Oh, Lord says he has a question.
Yeah, I actually have two questions. One of them is very fast, but I actually wrote it down when you said it. You said like 3 artists. You need 3 artists to make a genre of pop.
Yeah.
Can you like kind of explain like what you mean by that?
Well, for example, Dembow, right? So Dembow is a popular genre from the Dominican Republic. The biggest artist is El Alfa. He's done songs with Major Lazer, Balvin, Diplo, phenomenal artists. But a lot of us in the business have been saying Dembow's next. But we've been saying that for like 2 years, and it hasn't really gone beyond. I mean, it's getting there, but it needs other artists, and they're coming up, like someone like a Kiko El Crazy, Bolova, people like that. But there's no one on El Alfa's level yet. So it just can't be one artist. Sort of like, you know, think about salsa. Salsa, you think of salsa, who do you think about? Mark Anthony. Where are the other artists? Like there aren't other artists. Like, you know, at this point, Mark is a legend, of course, but there aren't any new salseros that I would say like, all right, this guy's next. Or so that's why I said it takes at least 3. You know. So.
Okay, makes sense. Thank you. And my second question, kind of more broad, but how do you feel like your upbringing in New York City impacted like your previous work and some of like your future goals? Like, I'm also from New York City, and like it definitely impacts a lot of my decisions.
Yeah, no, it impacts everything I do on a daily basis. I mean, like I said, I'm South American, but I grew up with Caribbean Latinos. I went to, you know, I grew up in not a good neighborhood in Brooklyn, but then I went to Catholic school, and then I was exposed to that, you know, culture, which is mainly, you know, Italian and Irish kids from Bensonhurst. But then I went to college, Brooklyn College. That's where I met some of my closest friends, and they're Haitian, and parents are from St. Vincent. So I don't think, where else could you get that other than New York? Like being surrounded by all these different cultures and being these different, even within Spanish, talking these different dialects. So it's helped me just being I think a well-rounded person beyond, like, even if I have been fortunate to travel the world, but even if I didn't, like, just go around the block in New York and speak to people, and you'll be able to capture the world in a nutshell, right? So.
Thank you so much. We're out of time. I have one more question. Actually, what song on the new J Balvin album that he released during quarantine is your favorite? Because I have a few.
How about I want to say Azul.
Same. That's mine. Okay. Our minds. All right. Well, again, thank you everyone for attending, and especially thank you to you, Jesus, for taking the time to speak with us and offering your invaluable experiences. I've learned so much, and it's so great to speak to another first-generation Latino in the United States, and get more of information about how they've experienced and how they've actually ended up in a career they really enjoy. If you're interested in learning more about Latinx media and entrepreneurship, please register and come to our next 2 speaker events. This upcoming Tuesday, we'll be hosting La Visión Latinx, which is redefining inclusivity in fashion, beauty, and branding, with co-speakers Daniel Alvarez from the Bonita Project and Leah Winograd from Pepper. And on Thursday, we'll be hosting Comunidades Digitales, celebrating and preserving the diversity and complexity of the Latinx identity, with Dijali Brown Cepeda from Nueva Yorkinos, and Frances Sola Santiago from Emperifola. I hope to see everyone there. Thank you again, Jesus, so much. We'll be in touch.
All right, thank you for having me. Bye, guys.
Bye, everyone.